Hello everyone, hope that you all are doing good. So today I'll discuss two issues that the subscribers are facing. Let's start by discussing the first one. So first one is that people are getting white label error when they take checkout of the code of Bus Reservation System Part 1, right? They register the user and then while logging through those credentials, they get a white label error. But my explanation is that I am not facing any issue. Let me try in front of you. But before that, you people are not supporting my channel. I asked that which topic I should cover, got most votes on REST API, but you people are not liking the content, not sharing the content. I would like to request you that please like, share and comment on the videos. Ask your friends, colleagues to subscribe the channel and show support to my videos. Let's get back to the work. Let me take check out of the project and let me import the project. So let me first go to the browser and this is my repository. This is my bus reservation code part 1, right? So I'll download the project. Let me download the project. So this is my project I downloaded from the Git repository, right? So now let me import the project. So now my project is imported. So what I have to do is I'll not change anything here. I'll just connect it with the database and run the application, right? So I'll go to application.properties and I have already made a schema, right? There is a schema called REST here, right? So I'll connect this schema only, right? So I don't have any tables here right now. So let me go in here and let me connect it with the REST schema. So I have entered the schema, I have entered the username and password. Now I'll go to the main class and I'll run the application. Let me run the application. So our server has started, right? So let me go to the browser and let me go to the registration URL, right? So let me go to the registration URL. Let me enter some name. Wait, Raman. And with my email ID and let me enter the password 12345, right? So let me click on register. So it will redirect me to login, right? So now if I enter my email ID and I'll type in password as 12345, it should help me get logged, right? So it has helped me get logged. I haven't got any white label error, right? So my explanation to the issue was that there is no error. And if you find something specific, right, some specific error is coming in your project, some logs are being printed in your console, so please ping me those console logs. I'll definitely check into that and will resolve your issue surely. Now let's jump on to the second issue, right? Many people have written me mails, written some comments that how we can convert our UI based project to a REST project, right? I've already covered a video wherein we have discussed REST APIs from scratch, right? So we have made two types of REST APIs. You can click on the I button. The video link is there. I'll put the link in the description as well, right? So now I'll convert this particular project, that is bus reservation system part 1 code, to a REST APIs, right? So how will we do it? So here what I'll do is there are two APIs, right? Basically two APIs, registration and login API. So we'll convert those registration and login API to a REST API. Right now they work on UI, right? So how will you convert it? First, what you have to do is nothing change in the structures. Just go to your config package, go to your Spring Security. So right now you can see here that in the config method, what we have written is that this slash registration request is being permitted, and for login we need a form login and some default success URL has been there, and then we have the logout calls, right? So you have to change the security first, right? So we are dealing with the REST API. So here what you have to do is you have to simply put the login URL as well here, right? And you have to remove all these things, right? You don't need these things. So let me remove these things, right? So yes, this will be your security part, right? And you have to disable the chorus filter and the CSRF, right? So you have to disable the CSRF. Disable CSRF dot disable, and you also need the chorus filters, right? So you also need the chorus filters. You have to disable the chorus filters as well, right? So you have to disable the chorus filters, you have to disable the CSRF token, and then your request of registration and login will be permitted, right? You have to give it in ant matchers, right? So this is the change in the config file. And now as we are converting it to a REST controller, so what we need is we need to convert the controllers as well. So let me go to the controller package and let me open the registration controller. So here you can see that we have a annotation of @controller. So you can work with @controller as well, but I'll convert it into a REST controller, right? So I'll type in here as @REST controller, right? So I'll say that I need a REST controller here. So I have defined a REST controller, and you can remove these unused imports as well. Now here you can see that we have the user service method, so you don't need to touch this. Just that you don't need the HTML page request, right? So this was the get request to display the HTML page to the user, the registration page to the user. So you don't need these requests, so comment those requests, right? And here you can see that in the post request of registration, there we have accepted a model attribute. So now model attribute is being used when you are taking the input from the UI. So you don't need model attribute, just that you have to define a request body, right? So you need to define a request body, right? And now as it is returning a string, but we want to return the response should be meaningful to the user. So what we can do here is we can return a response entity, right? So we can return a response entity object, right? So what we can do here is it returns a user object. So let me make a user object here, user equals, right? And let me import user. So it's from my package, and if I say that if user not equals null, right? So if the user is not equal to null, then what we have to return is we have to return new response entity. So we have to return from here is response entity, right? So we need response entity object, and then you can give a message that okay, the user is successfully registered, right? And then you can give the status, http status, right? http status dot okay. So request was success, so we have given it okay. And if in case the user is null, and in case we are not able to save the user, then we can simply return here is that the user was not registered, right? Was not registered. And you can return the status as bad request, right? Bad request, right? So this is how you can convert your UI call of registration to a REST API call, right? So this is how you have converted your registration call to a REST API call. Now let's convert the call of login as well. Then we'll run the application and check both the controllers together, right? So here also you can see that this is a call for a model attribute, and okay, so you can remove these calls, right? As this is a get call for a user login page, and then the model attribute call. So what you can do here is this is a post mapping. First of all, you have to define here a REST controller, right? So define a REST controller here rather than a controller. Then what you have to do here is you have to remove the model attribute, and you have to define the request body, right? So we need the request body, and what it is doing is it is load user by username. It is using a default method from user details service. So what you can do here is it is returning a user details object, right? So let me check. Yes, it is returning a user details object. So you can type in like this, and you can simply check that okay, if user not equals null, then what we have to do is we have to return a response. else we have to return another response. Right now what we were doing is that this was actually taking to you when you log in, so there was a redirect URL, right? So it was taking you to a dashboard URL. Now we have to return a response to the user. So what we can do here is we can remove void from here, and we can simply say response entity, and we need the object, right? So what needs to be returned from here? Again the same, return new response entity, what we did in the registration controller. So you can simply say that user is successfully logged in with id or anything else you can define. Here I have the email ID, so I'll say user.get username, right? So username is a email ID, so I have to put a plus here, right? So it will say that your user is successfully login with the email ID this, and if in case the user is null, right, so we don't find the user in the database, then also we need to return some response, right? So response could be user not found, user not found with given credentials, right? And then you can mark this request as bad request, right? So you can mark this request as bad request, right? So now we have converted the login API and the registration API to a REST API, right? So this is how you can convert your whole project, right? And if required, you can even ping me out, I can help you out. So this is actually this video has been made to give you an idea that how you can convert your UI project to a REST project. And also that the first agenda of the video was that people are getting errors, white label errors. I tried it in front of you, I didn't get a white label error, right? So now we have converted our registration and login controllers to a REST controllers. Now let me simply run the server again, and we'll try hitting the APIs through Postman, right? So now my server, let me start the server again. So the table is already made in the database, right? We made the tables when we were discussing the first agenda of the project, that was that white label error. So now my server has started. So let me go to the Postman. First, let me go to registration controller and see that what is the call. It's a post call, and the URL is /registration, and we have to input the user register details. So let me go to user register detail, and what all fields are there in there. So there is name, email ID, password, and role, right? So let me go on the registration API. So what we have to do is we need a post call and we need the registration call, right? So let me put this registration here, and now let me check the fields, what all fields are required. In the user register detail, we need the name, email ID, password. Let me copy this, email ID, password, and role, right? So name, email ID, password, and role. So we need name. Let me enter it again. So we need name could be like ABC, right? Then we need the email ID, right? So let me input this as an email ID, and then we need a password, right? So password is 1234, that will do. And then we need a role, right? So we need a role as well. So let me input the role as user, right? So now let me hit this endpoint from Postman, right? So yes, you can see that our user is successfully registered, right? So if you go to the console as well, so insert query is being fired, right? And our user is being registered through a REST endpoint. Now we have hit the API from the Postman, right? So now with this user, let me log in, right? So what all is being required, let me go to the login controller, and it says that it needs a user login detail. So what all fields are there in the user login detail? Let us check. So it requires a username and a password, right? So it requires a username and a password. So username, as I said, is an email ID. So let me rename this field username and the password, right? And both other fields let us remove, right? So let me remove these fields. So now what we need to do is we have to hit this endpoint of login, right? So let me try and hit this endpoint of login, that is /login. So it's a post call and we need this body to log in. Our password was this and email ID is this. So it should allow us to log in. So yes, so it says that the user is successfully logged in with the ID email @gm.com. So this message is coming from the login controller, which we have just changed, right? So we have changed this to response entity response, right? So this is how you can convert your UI based project to a REST project, right? So this is just a small idea that I have given, but you can apply it to other APIs as well, right? So hope that your doubts are clear now. Hope you people like, share, comment on the video and show some support to the video, right? If new to the channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Hope to see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.